I can't tell you the number of times people have said, Judge, I didn't agree with your decision, but at least you heard me out. At least you were fair to me. I appreciate that. And that's what we're aiming for here.
This is Hudson Valley Storycatcher, a podcast for curious residents where we bridge the distance between our hills and homes with good stories that turn strangers into neighbors. I'm Jen Lee. When it comes to our local courthouses, we all may have a variety of experiences with them. Some of us may never stop by there or go in. Others of us may only find ourselves there for special occasions, such as a wedding. Others of us may find ourselves there in times of conflict. And some of us, it turns out, are what they call frequent flyers in the system that intersects there. When I came across Judge Jonah Triebwasser, I was so interested to speak to him for all kinds of reasons. I have so many questions about what it's like to be a judge in real life and not just the portrayals of them we see on TV. I wanted to know what kind of perspective you get on a local community when you're the one sitting behind the bench. And I was also intrigued by his work as a radio host for the show At Your Service. If you listen to his show, you'll hear what I hear, that this is a kind, warm-hearted person who really cares about his community. And so it was really a pleasure and honor to speak with him, to hear about his journey, how does one become a judge, what he's learned about human nature, and whether or not we're capable of change, and what his thoughts are about justice in this moment of time, both in our region and in our country. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me.
My pleasure, Jen. It's a delight to be with you.
What else should we know about you?
Well, I've been a Red Hook resident since 1979. I started out as a police officer down in New York City, as an investigator for the Attorney General's office. Then after law school, I became a prosecutor for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, prosecuting environmental crimes. And when I retired from that, I became both the town and the village judge here in Red Hook, and now I'm just a village judge. And that's about it. Married, 2 children, 4 grandchildren. I've spent a lot of my adult life part-time in radio, so this is old home week for me.
That sounds great. That's quite a journey.
Right.
And one thing I was thinking about that seems unique to being a judge is that it usually seems to come after holding other positions. So is it something that you ever aspired to? Or did it come in after the fact?
I sort of fell into everything. When I was a police officer, I was working for the Attorney General's office, and one night I was preparing testimony that was going into the grand jury the next day with one of the assistant attorneys general. And he said to me, Jonah, you're a pretty bright guy. You ever think about law school? I said, no, I enjoy being a cop. I never thought about being a lawyer. And I went home and said to my wife, this fellow said, Jess, did I go to law school? He said, yeah, go to law school. Great. I hate you being a cop. So I went to law school. And as for the judgeship, when I retired, I went to teach as an adjunct professor at both Vassar and Marist colleges. I was teaching environmental law and criminal law. And chairman of one of the local political parties here in Red Hook says, do you know anybody who wants to run for judge? I want to make sure I've got a full ticket. And I said, yeah, I'll do that for you, sure. Never thinking I'd win, and here we are.
That's great. I think a lot of times our perceptions about judges for most people are largely formed by TV or movies.
Right.
So I'm curious if there are any common misconceptions you think people have about judges?
The first thing I do, especially when we have a small claims case, I said, look at the nameplate. It says Judge Jonah, not Judge Judy. We don't interrupt each other. We don't raise our voices. We especially don't interrupt the old guy wearing the black robes. By the way, Judge Judy Scheinlein went to the same law school I did a few years before I did, and they have a hall of judges in one of the rooms where pictures of all the judges are, and because her name's Scheinlein and my name's Triebwasser, she's one row above me and five pictures over.
Oh, wow.
But, she does that for entertainment. No judge would act like that with a real case. We're a lot more dignified than all the screaming and whooping and hollering you see on TV judge shows.
So you keep things with like a high level of civility in your courtroom.
Oh, yeah. I insist on that.
Have you ever had a case that really surprised you?
Oh, every month.
Every month?
Oh, yeah, every month. You see the whole panoply of human foibles especially when you're a criminal court judge. Sometimes you scratch your head and say, how did you think that was a good idea to do what you did? But you don't say it, you just think it. I've had some surprising cases. Mostly people that do the same thing the same way over and over again and wonder why they get caught.
So you're thinking you could have been a quicker learner.
Well, yeah. I mean, for example, I had a case where a person was picked up for drunk driving, and if you're picked up for drunk driving in New York, your license gets suspended pending prosecution while the case is being heard. But you can ask for what they call a hardship privilege to go to and from work, to and from education, and to and from doctor's appointments. So he asked for a hardship privilege, and the very next week he got picked up again for drunk driving on the hardship privilege. So that was kind of surprising. I also had a case where there was a domestic violence situation, and I gave an order of protection. Stay away from the girlfriend, don't talk to her, don't reach out to, on her, to telephone, Facebook, text messages, none of that stuff. And I always go point by point in the court, and I say, do you understand? Yes. Do you understand you're not supposed to call her? Yes. Do you understand you're not supposed to go near her? Yes. Do you understand you're not supposed to text her? Yes. Not to go near her house? Yeah. Not to go near her job? Yes. Okay. Yes. Just to describe for the audience, the courtroom has a front door and a back door, and the front door leads to 3 steps in the front of Village Hall on South Broadway. The defendant, it turned out, went out to the front on the top step, took out his telephone, and texted his girlfriend several threats after I just told him, don't text her.
One step out the door.
Right. She calls the police radio my court officer. My court officer tells me what's going on. I said, bring him back in. And we held him in contempt for he disobeyed my order.
Right. After you've seen what you've seen throughout your career, do you feel like it's changed your idea about human nature, how likely we are to change, or?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I've been at this for 50-some-odd years. I went to police academy at 19, and I'm now 76. So, it can turn you into a cynic about people. Most people are good. Many people, they make one mistake in their lives, and they go on from there. But some people, we call them frequent flyers. They're recidivists. They come back again and again and again, and they just can't get out of their own way. So, yeah, makes you a little bit cynical on occasion.
How about your relationship to the community? Do you find that holding this position shapes that at all? Or impacts it?
Yeah. I have a lot of people who will see me on the street or in Hannaford, the supermarket, and say, hi, Judge. You go, hi, how are you? Good to see you. You looking well? How's everything? I have no idea who they are. Now, are they somebody who's been in front of me for a ticket? Somebody I went door to door asking for their support during an election? Somebody I did a wedding for or attended a wedding I did? I often don't know. As any other public official, we like to attend all the pancake breakfasts and spaghetti dinners and barbecue dinners and stuff because people like to see their public officials at these community events, and besides, the food's good. So I see a lot of people there. It's been a real joy being able to give back to the Red Hook community, which has been very good to me and my family since we moved here in 1979.
It's a long time to be here.
Well, it doesn't look a long time looking backwards.
Looking backwards? Has the village or town changed?
Oh, yeah. It's much more diverse than when we first moved here. A lot more people. We have many more traffic lights. We used to have just the one traffic light on the corner of Broadway and Market, and now we have more traffic lights than that. We have bigger Hannaford. We used to have just the IGA for a grocery store. Now you have the Hannaford, and it has changed. I think for the better, but especially more diverse. You see a whole rainbow of people in the schools today, kids in the schools today, which you didn't see when my kids went to the school here.
What are the qualities you think make a good judge?
Patience. You have to have patience. When Judge Jeffrey Martin and I were first elected to the town court here, and I was elected to the village court here, we agreed that we wanted to be treated. We wanted to treat people the way we wanted to be treated if we were on the other side of the bench. And that's been my guiding light throughout the 18 years, or 19 years now that I've been on the bench. Treat people the way you want to be treated. But you have to have patience. Especially, like I say, with some folks that come back time and again and just can't get out of their own way.
Do you have any tricks for that if you feel like you're losing your cool in the moment?
Well, I'll call an adjournment, go in and make myself another cup of tea. Sometimes, if they're represented by counsel, I'll say, counsel, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, take your client aside and explain to them the court's powers of contempt. Right? That gives them a chance to tell them, calm down. You're getting on the judge's nerves, or you're showing a lot of disrespect for the court. Don't do it. Gives me a chance to go on to the next case and, cool off. I very, very, very rarely lose my temper. If I speak sharply, it's acting. It's theater. It's to get their attention.
It's not coming from a place of...
No, because I've been at this so long, and you develop a very thick skin, both as a cop, a prosecutor, and as a judge. You develop a very thick skin. It's the only way to survive.
So how does that sound like inside of yourself, having a thick skin? Like, do you start to know that it's not about you personally when people are doing or saying things that are upsetting?
Well, sometimes it's personal, they're nervous. They're upset. They're in a bad spot in their lives. So you have to understand that, and you have to, accommodate it to the extent of you not losing your cool because they're losing theirs.
Yeah, that makes sense. It also reminds me of parenting.
Like I said, I have 2 kids and 4 grandchildren.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of all of them.
So there's some practice there,
right.
too. That's really interesting. I'm also curious about, how do you feel like you've changed since the beginning of your career until now? How are you different?
Well, when you become older, some people become less tolerant, some people become more tolerant. I think I've become more tolerant. I've certainly changed since my police days because being a police officer, you have a jaundiced view of everybody. Everybody, like what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? Your antennas are always up. And same thing to some extent as a prosecutor. But as a judge, you have to be even-handed. All right, you have to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. They're innocent until proven guilty. And I believe that. And so I think I've become more tolerant and less doctrinaire.
That makes sense. I'm curious how you feel like what the role plays in the village, just to have, it feels like the purpose here is to keep things running smoothly, to have kind of
right.
like a moral traffic.
Right. Well, we're called the courts closest to the people. We very often are the only experience in the court system that people have, whether it's a traffic ticket, a small claims case, a minor crime. We are the courts closest to the people. And we want to give them an experience where even if they lose the case, they think at least they've been treated fairly. I can't tell you the number of times people have said, Judge, I didn't agree with your decision, but at least you heard me out. At least you were fair to me. I appreciate that. And that's what we're aiming for here.
Yeah, is to bring that experience of people feeling like they had their chance to be heard.
And this is no criticism of my colleagues in the superior courts, but their caseloads are so large and so diverse, and they cover such a wide area, whether it's county court, Supreme Court, the federal courts, that it's somewhat remote from the average person. If they end up there, they're really overwhelmed. Whereas here, it's more homey. It's more like, all right, I see the jurors, they're my neighbors, and I've seen the judge at the pancake breakfast or in Hannaford. Like, it's a little less intimidating, I think.
Because you have that kind of communal connection.
Right. Correct.
I'm curious if you've ever had a time where you had to make a decision because you needed to follow the law, but if the way the law was written or it was being applied, it didn't feel necessarily to you like the right thing
to do. Every judge has that. Especially for example, in the small claims arena, where we're supposed to do substantial justice, but there are certain laws that have to be followed. And for example, in a landlord-tenant matter, that's separate from small claims matters. Somebody's lost a job, they can't pay their rent, and they said, "Judge, I got no place to go." Well, on the one hand, I feel some compassion for that person. On the other hand, the landlord's got to pay the taxes, the electric, the water bill, and they're not running a charity. They need to get rent income to pay for their expenses. So the black and white of it is, if you didn't pay your rent, I've got to ask you to leave. As much as I sympathize, that's probably the one place where every judge has difficulty.
And then how do you organize that inside of yourself? Like, make sense of it or have it not be upsetting?
It's the job. That's my job. My job is to apply the facts, the law to the facts. Right? And if the facts are they aren't paying rent and they're in violation of a lease, or, they haven't, if they're on a month-to-month tenancy and they've been asked to leave because not paying the rent and they haven't left, law says they have to go.
Yeah. So that helps give it some clarity if you just focus on this.
Well, that's our job. Apply the law to the facts.
Right. I'm thinking about kind of the present moment we're in. We're in the year 2026, and I just keep thinking about this idea of justice and you having such a unique perspective on it. I'm curious if there's anything that you feel like is important for us to know about justice.
Justice very often is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, if you're in front of me on a case and, small claims case, both sides think they're right, somebody's going to be unhappy at the end. But if you treat them fairly and you hear them out, even if they lose at the end of the decision, they may still think that they have been given justice because they've had an opportunity to be heard. But, justice flows with the times. Before I had the pleasure of sitting down with you, I was attending a Zoom webinar on the Korematsu case. And the Korematsu case involves a Japanese American who was interred during Second World War in camps out in the desert just because he was Japanese, and the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, and they took all the Japanese out of the West Coast and took away their homes, took away their businesses, and put them in these internment camps. That wasn't justice for them, right? It was purely a racial profiling situation. Now, you go back to 1942, after the Pearl Harbor attack of December 7th, 1941. You go back to 1942 and ask the people who weren't sent to the concentration camps, who were worried about a Japanese invasion from, mainland Japan, coming, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump by airplane from Hawaii to Los Angeles and San Diego and San Francisco. They probably thought that was justice for the better good, but it wasn't justice. If you ever read the Korematsu case, read the dissent by Judge Murphy and Judge Jackson. They call it just like it is. They say, look, this was racism, period, full stop, the end. This was unconstitutional. But the majority said, well, wartime, we can't tie the hands of the president. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, that's what the Constitution's there for, and that's what the court is there for, to have independent judgment.
I think that example in particular is interesting because I do think that idea of racial profiling hasn't gone away. And also the idea that we have dissenting voices that are sometimes overridden. Well,
everyone in the criminal justice system takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. And the Constitution stands for the principle that law should be colorblind. Everyone's equal before the bench of the law, before the bar. I take that very seriously. My colleagues on the bench take that very seriously. That everyone's equal before the law. It's the only way this country can survive. The only way this country can operate.
Yeah, I think that mindset and approach, in addition to what you're sharing about giving people a chance to really be heard.
Right.
Those feel relevant to anyone who's also just trying to be a good community member.
Right.
So that feels applicable to all of us, it seems. Even those of us who maybe very rarely set foot inside a courtroom. Is there anything else that you want to share about that I haven't asked you?
Well, we occasionally have jury trials, so when you get that jury notice, don't try and duck out of it. Do your constitutional duty to be a juror. I think, first of all, you'll find it very interesting, and secondly, the system relies upon citizens, such as yourself, to serve on juries.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how many jury trials do you get a year?
In 19 years, we've done 5. Only 3 of which went to verdict.
Wow.
Yeah, the other 2 sort of looked at the jurors and said, can I plead guilty as to that other deal we had before I went to the jury trial? But we had 3 jury trials that went to verdict.
So it's not very common.
Not in this court.
In this one.
Right. It's more common in some of the superior courts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm often surprised by how many people talk about trying to get out of jury duty.
Well, I'm not going to kid you. It's an inconvenience. I mean, if you're a sole practitioner, a doctor, a dentist, you're running some other kind of business, you're a stay-at-home parent with small kids, it's a big inconvenience. Yeah. But if you've got the time, you should do it. Senior citizens like myself love jury duty. They won't put me on a jury because I'm a judge. But when my dad was alive, he loved jury duty. First of all, it gave him extra pin money, pocket money, and it was better than the soaps, he said. He found it interesting.
Really entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it seems like you can't make up the things that you see in real life.
That's right.
The broadcasting experience does interest me, where I'm just curious if you notice an interplay between your broadcasting role and your judgeship role.
I would say no.
No,
there isn't.
Totally separate lanes.
I was a child of radio. We didn't get our first television until I was in first grade, so I listened to all the old radio adventure shows, which were tailing off in the early 50s. My mother listened to Don McNeil's Breakfast Club coming out of Chicago, and I thought it was great that little box atop of the refrigerator, which was a 5-tube radio, no transistors in those days, brought things in from Chicago. Wow. And then I got into radio in college, and I've been in and out of commercial radio part-time ever since. In the mid-1980s, we had a radio program on WGHQ locally in Kingston called Point of Law. It won awards, in fact, educating folks about the law. And now, for the past 18 years, I've been on the radio in WBPM and WGHQ with a program called At Your Service. It used to be called Radio Rotary, now it's At Your Service, and we talk about the kind of things that the nonprofits do in the area to help people, especially the Rotary clubs. And
can you tell us, for people who aren't familiar, what a Rotary Club, what the mission of it is?
The Rotary Club is a service organization made up of citizens of various professions and businesses and backgrounds. And we meet every Tuesday. We meet the second and fourth Tuesday at the Flatiron Restaurant for breakfast. First Tuesday on Zoom, and then the third Tuesday at someplace else in the evening as a social event. But we have guest speakers, and we try and do good works to make Red Hook a better place to live. We host Apple Blossom Day. We have Adopt a Highway. We have scholarships for the high school students going on to either vocational school or college. We do a lot of good stuff.
That's great.
But mainly it's a service organization, similar to the Lions and Knights of Columbus, Knights of Pythias, any of these service organizations.
And people can also find your show anywhere they listen to podcasts as well.
Right, it's on a podcast on Apple and Google and all those podcasts.
Yeah, sometimes now I think about podcasting being that extended reach.
Well, it's also, you don't have to get up early on a Sunday morning because we're on WGHQ at 7 in the morning and WBPM at 7:30. So if you subscribe to the podcast, you don't have to wake up that early on Sunday.
You can listen to it at your convenience.
Right, exactly.
That's so great. And anything you want to share about community service in general? Because it seems like serving the community is important value to you.
It'll make your hometown a better place to live if you volunteer. And there's a crying need for volunteers. Everyone's looking at their phone all day long. They're binge watching episodes of things on Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff. We have a crying need for volunteers with our fire department, volunteer fire department, for example. If they don't have enough volunteers and we have to start having a professional firefighters, you're talking immense amounts of money because these people deserve a good wage if they're going to be hired. So every organization, every church, every synagogue, every service organization, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the various sports teams, they all need volunteers. and make your hometown a better place to live. Volunteer.
That's great. Thank you so much, Judge, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Jen, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks again to Judge Triebwasser for sharing his time and his stories with us. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend. Hudson Valley Storycatcher is a community-based project, and if you know someone who would be a great guest on the show, I want to hear from you. Email us at hudsonvalleystorycatcher@gmail.com with guest nominations. And you can always find the podcast at hudsonvalleystorycatcher.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. The best way to support the show is to subscribe wherever you listen or to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, keep your heart open and your ears ready. Every neighbor has a story. I'm Jen Lee. Thank you for catching this story with me.